But the teacher and ruler of the synagogue of the Magi from Egypt persuaded him to change his course, urging him to slay and persecute pure and holy men because they opposed and hindered the corrupt and abominable incantations. For there are and there were men who, being present and being seen, though they only breathed and spoke, were able to scatter the counsels of the sinful demons. And he induced him to practice initiations and abominable sorceries, and to offer unacceptable sacrifices, to slay innumerable children and to sacrifice the offspring of unhappy fathers, to divide the bowels of newborn babes and to mutilate and cut to pieces the creatures of God, as if by such practices they could attain happiness. He adds to this the following: Splendid indeed were the thank offerings which Macrianus brought them for the empire which was the object of his hopes. He is said to have been formerly the emperor's general finance minister, yet he did nothing praiseworthy or of general benefit, but fell under the prophetic saying, "Woe unto those who prophesy from their own heart and do not consider the general good." For he did not perceive the general providence, nor did he look for the judgment of him who is before all, and through all, and over all. Wherefore he became an enemy of his Catholic Church, and alienated and estranged himself from the compassion of God, and fled as far as possible from his salvation. In this he showed the truth of his own name. And again farther on he says, "For Valerian, being instigated to such acts by this man, was given over to insults and reproaches, according to what was said by Isaiah, They have chosen their own ways, and their abominations in which their soul delighted. I also will choose their delusions, and will render unto them their sins." But this man madly desired the kingdom though unworthy of it, and being unable to put the royal garment on his crippled body, set forward his 2 sons to bear their father's sins. For concerning them the declaration which God spoke was plain, visiting the iniquities of the fathers upon the children unto the 3rd and 4th generation of them that hate me. For heaping on the heads of his sons his own evil desires, in which he had met with success, he wiped off upon them his own wickedness and hatred toward God. Dionysius relates these things concerning Valerian. Chapter 11. The events which happened at this time to Dionysius and those in Egypt. But as regards the persecution which prevailed so fiercely in his reign, and the sufferings which Dionysius with others endured on account of piety toward the God of the universe, his own words shall show, which he wrote in answer to Germanus, a contemporary bishop who was endeavoring to slander him. His statement is as follows: "Truly I am in danger of falling into great folly and stupidity through being forced to relate the wonderful providence of God toward us. But since it is said that it is good to keep close the secret of a king, but it is honorable to reveal the works of God, I will join issue with the violence of Germanus. I went not alone to Aemilianus, but my fellow presbyter Maximus, and the deacons Faustus, Eusebius, and Cimeron, and a brother who was present from Rome, went with me. But Aemilianus did not at first say to me, Hold no assemblies, for this was superfluous to him, and the last thing to one who was seeking to accomplish the first. For he was not concerned about our assembling, but that we ourselves should not be Christians. And he commanded me to give this up, supposing if I turned from it, the others also would follow me. But I answered him, neither unsuitably nor in many words, we must obey God rather than men. And I testified openly that I worshipped the one only God, and no other, and that I would not turn from this nor would I ever cease to be a Christian. Thereupon he commanded us to go to a village near the desert called Cephro. But listen to the very words which were spoken on both sides as they were recorded. Dionysius, Faustus, Maximus, Marcellus, and Cimeron being arraigned, Aemilianus the prefect said, I have reasoned verbally with you concerning the clemency which our rulers have shown to you, for they have given you the opportunity to save yourselves, if you will turn to that which is according to nature, and worship the gods that preserve their empire, and forget those that are contrary to nature. What then do you say to this? For I do not think that you will be ungrateful for their kindness, since they would turn you to a better course." Dionysius replied, "Not all people worship all gods, but each one those whom he approves. We therefore reverence and worship the one God, the Maker of all, who hath given the empire to the divinely favored and august Valerian and Gallienus; and we pray to him continually for their empire that it may remain unshaken." Aemilianus the prefect said to them, "But who forbids you to worship him, if he is a god, together with those who are gods by nature? For ye have been commanded to reverence the gods, and the gods whom all know." Dionysius answered, "We worship no other." Aemilianus the prefect said to them, "I see that you are at once ungrateful, and insensible to the kindness of our sovereigns. Wherefore ye shall not remain in this city, but ye shall be sent into the regions of Libya, to a place called Cephro. For I have chosen this place at the command of our sovereigns, and it shall by no means be permitted you or any others, either to hold assemblies, or to enter into the so-called cemeteries. But if any one shall be seen without the place which I have commanded, or be found in any assembly, he will bring peril on himself. For suitable punishment shall not fail. Go, therefore, where ye have been ordered." And he hastened me away, though I was sick, not granting even a day's respite. What opportunity then did I have, either to hold assemblies, or not to hold them? Farther on he says, "But through the help of the Lord we did not give up the open assembly. But I called together the more diligently those who were in the city, as if I were with them, being, so to speak, absent in body but present in spirit. But in Cephro a large church gathered with us of the brethren that followed us from the city, and those that joined us from Egypt, and there God opened unto us a door for the word. At first we were persecuted and stoned, but afterwards not a few of the heathen forsook the idols and turned to God. For until this time they had not heard the word, since it was then first sown by us. And as if God had brought us to them for this purpose, when we had performed this ministry he transferred us to another place. For Aemilianus, as it appeared, desired to transport us to rougher and more Libyan-like places, so he commanded them to assemble from all quarters in Moreatus, and assigned to them different villages throughout the country. But he ordered us to be placed nearer the highway that we might be seized first. For evidently he arranged and prepared matters, so that whenever he wished to seize us he could take all of us without difficulty. When I was first ordered to go to Cephro I did not know where the place was, and had scarcely ever heard the name; yet I went readily and cheerfully. But when I was told that I was to remove to the district of Caluthyon, those who were present know how I was affected. For here I will accuse myself. At first I was grieved and greatly disturbed, for though these places were better known and more familiar to us, yet the country was said to be destitute of brethren and of men of character, and to be exposed to the annoyances of travellers and incursions of robbers. But I was comforted when the brethren reminded me that it was nearer the city, and that while Cephro afforded us much intercourse with the brethren from Egypt, so that we were able to extend the church more widely, as this place was nearer the city we should enjoy more frequently the sight of those who were truly beloved and most closely related and dearest to us. For they would come and remain, and special meetings could be held, as in the more remote suburbs. And thus it turned out. After other matters, he writes again as follows of the things which happened to him. Germanus indeed boasts of many confessions. He can speak forsooth of many adversities which he himself has endured. But is he able to reckon up as many as we can, of sentences, confiscations, proscriptions, plundering of goods, loss of dignities, contempt of worldly glory, disregard for the flatteries of governors and of counsellors, and patient endurance of the threats of opponents, of outcries, of perils and persecutions, and wandering and distress, and all kinds of tribulation, such as came upon me under Decius and Sabinus, and such as continue even now under Aemilianus? But where has Germanus been seen? And what account is there of him? But I turn from this great folly into which I am falling on account of Germanus, and for the same reason I desist from giving to the brethren who know it an account of everything which took place. The same writer also in the epistle to Domitius and Didymus mentions some particulars of the persecution as follows: "As our people are many and unknown to you, it would be superfluous to give their names; but understand that men and women, young and old, maidens and matrons, soldiers and civilians, of every race and age, some by scourging and fire, others by the sword, have conquered in the strife and received their crowns. But in the case of some a very long time was not sufficient to make them appear acceptable to the Lord, as indeed it seems also in my own case, that sufficient time has not yet elapsed. Wherefore he has retained me for the time which he knows to be fitting, saying, In an acceptable time have I heard thee, and in a day of salvation have I helped thee. For as you have inquired of our affairs and desire us to tell you how we are situated, you have heard fully that when we, that is, myself and Gaius and Faustus and Peter and Paul, were led away as prisoners by a centurion and magistrates, with their soldiers and servants, certain persons from Moreatus came and dragged us away by force, as we were unwilling to follow them. But now I and Gaius and Peter are alone, deprived of the other brethren, and shut up in a desert and dry place in Libya, 3 days' journey from Parætonium." He says farther on, the presbyters, Maximus, Dioscorus, Demetrius, and Lucius, concealed themselves in the city, and visited the brethren secretly, for Faustinus and Aquila, who are more prominent in the world, are wandering in Egypt. But the deacons, Faustus, Eusebius, and Cimeron, have survived those who died in the pestilence. Eusebius is one whom God has strengthened and endowed from the first to fulfill energetically the ministrations for the imprisoned confessors, and to attend to the dangerous task of preparing for burial the bodies of the perfected and blessed martyrs. For as I have said before, unto the present time the governor continues to put to death in a cruel manner those who are brought to trial. And he destroys some with tortures, and wastes others away with imprisonment and bonds, and he suffers no one to go near them, and investigates whether any one does so. Nevertheless God gives relief to the afflicted through the zeal and persistence of the brethren. Thus far Dionysius. But it should be known that Eusebius, whom he calls a deacon, shortly afterward became bishop of the church of Laodicea in Syria, and Maximus, of whom he speaks as being then a presbyter, succeeded Dionysius himself as bishop of Alexandria. But the Faustus who was with him, and who at that time was distinguished for his confession, was preserved until the persecution in our day, when being very old and full of days, he closed his life by martyrdom, being beheaded. But such are the things which happened at that time to Dionysius.